Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan, glad to be back from London, where they changed one word in the national anthem and it made all the difference in the world. I hope you're all bundling up wherever you are, because I understand that more than half the country is in some kind of a deep freeze. We seem here in Detroit to have skirted a lot of the really nasty snowfall, but high winds and bone-chilling cold are still there, and hopefully not for too much longer. So,
It's not that bad.
or where
Yeah,
Mike is in probably the toastiest place in all of Metro Detroit, it is not that bad.
I'm in my office in the Guardian building.
Really?
Oh, okay.
North Dakota or Minnesota or Calgary or Edmonton or Winnipeg, that's cold. This ain't nothing.
Yeah, I heard in Cheyenne the temperature dropped 40 degrees in 9 minutes.
Wow.
So
I read that
yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah, that's not
But
that's not fun.
I have to say though, they're used to that there. So
They are.
it's the cold, the proverbial. I think the term of art is the blue norther. So there you go.
All of these terms. All right. Well, we are joined then with our terminologist, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer. We've got well ensconced in his nice toasty office at the Guardian Building, attorney Mike Rataj. We have AM 910 host Adolph Mongo. And of course, we have Deadline Detroit co-founder Allan Lengel. So, lots to talk about this week, so we might as well just jump right into it. The January 6th committee has not only issued its final version report, but it has also made recommendations for criminal referrals to the Department of Justice, particularly centering it around one Donald J. Trump as being the hub, the hive, and the nucleus for all malfeasance that happened almost a year ago on January the 6th. What's everybody's assessment with it? Where's it going? Will there be indictments? And is Donald going up the river?
Let's go to Mike.
I like to let the attorneys give the first answer on these questions.
Well, I mean, it's certainly a roadmap for the Justice Department, particularly the special prosecutor. I think I forget his name right now. What is it?
Jack Smith.
Jack Smith.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think he is going to be indicted. I think he needs to be indicted. And if we're going to have, if the rule of law means anything in this country, he absolutely must be indicted. And I can tell you that I've represented a lot of people that have done a lot less than him that are sitting in federal prison right now. So, yes, he will be indicted, guaranteed.
So there's 4 charges, Mike, that that they are recommending. One being, I think, the most serious, insurrection. A couple of them being conspiracy to defraud, conspiracy to obstruct. Which ones do you think are the most likely that they're going to get indictments, and which ones are the most likely for convictions, do you think?
Well, nobody could predict a conviction. Nobody could predict what would happen. But I think that he's going to be indicted on all 4 of them. And he's going to be indicted on the classified documents. And he's going to be charged down in Georgia. I mean, and the problem is he's got no lawyer. Nobody worth their salt wants to represent this clown.
Sure.
So that's going to be his biggest problem, that he's not going to have good legal representation. But I don't think it's going to matter. But I really believe that he is going to be indicted. Whether lawyers can't predict convictions, but certainly it seems that the evidence is there. I started to thumb through the January 6th report. It's 800 some odd pages. I looked at some of the appendixes, and certainly I haven't done a deep dive into it, but clearly the evidence is there.
Good.
Allan.
I was going to say, there's some debate on the talking heads on TV whether the report and the reference, the criminal reference, matters at all. I think it does. I think it puts it out there, I think it puts a little more pressure on the Justice Department to take action. I mean, I think the January 6th committee, I was skeptical initially, but I thought they did a great job. They laid it all out. They gave a pretty good snapshot of what was happening there. And, you know, I think the Justice Department is going to be under a lot of criticism if for some reason they passed. People would be dumbfounded by that. So.
Well, watch out for this Jack Smith guy.
Yeah,
This guy, he don't play.
Right.
Really, that's good to
He's a
know.
serious prosecutor.
The cynic in me says he's not going to be indicted, but the hopeful American in me says, God, he has to be, because, as you said, Mike, there's no rule. If the rule of law doesn't apply to everyone in this country, it applies to no one. And as you pointed out, many other people who have done far less are sitting in federal prison right now. I don't know if it'll make it. I mean, he's going to do what he usually does, which is, delay. And, he's 77
now. You can't delay an indictment.
No, you can't delay an indictment, but I mean, I'm thinking forward to the porn perp walk that I'm really hoping to see before I die. And, of Donald Trump doing the walk with his jacket over his wrists because of the handcuffs. But it's a stupendous, when you step back and think about it, it's so easy to get caught in the day-to-day of, the news has been a fire hose for so long now. But to think that this is a former president of the United States who was impeached not once but twice, and is now facing has now had this case wrapped up with a bow and handed to federal prosecutors. And God, I hope that at the very least he's indicted. I'm kind of plowing my way through a very long Olivia Nuzzi profile of Trump at Mar-a-Lago, kind of Trump in his dementia years. And I've only just started it. It's pretty long, but I get the impression that he is just a sad, broken man sitting down at Mar-a-Lago, crashing wedding receptions. And I want to see him sadder and more broken. So,
Nancy, do you think that when he gets to jail or prison, do you think he will take the Bible that he was holding on to when he crossed Lafayette Park, or will it be the one that the Shawshank warden gives him? Because there might be options here.
Yeah.
Adolph, what do you think about what's going on with the Jan 6 report?
Well, you know what? I think the Republicans, they might not come out and say it. They're happy as hell because now they can take back the party. Mitch McConnell's, McCarthy, all these folks, they want to see this guy go away. Ron DeSantis is just waiting in the wings to come out and say he's running for president. So it reminds me of reading about Joe McCarthy. Nobody wanted to confront him. But then when one person did and another one, they turned on him. And they're turning on Donald Trump. And I think that the Justice Department is under pressure to throw the book at him. Now, if they don't throw the book at this guy, you know what? They don't even need to prosecute anybody. I'm telling you. Because he is a criminal. He is a crook of the first class. Absolutely. And if he doesn't get indicted, listen, they need to just shut down and not prosecute anybody. Look, at IRS refused to even audit him like they should have. This guy got away with murder. Yeah. Stole millions of dollars from the American people.
I agree with Adolph. But the problem is that the Republicans are so flippin' gutless that they won't do it themselves. They want the Justice Department or they want everybody else to take their swipe at Trump instead of doing it themselves. And that's what's sad about the whole bloody thing. But nevertheless, I agree with Adolph. They McConnell and the rest of these clowns, they do want to see him get indicted. So then they won't have to deal with him and he'll go away. Mm-hmm. But
I think part of America has lost sight of the fact the standards, the expectations for Donald Trump became so low. I mean, if any other president had done and the whole conspiracy to basically have a coup, overthrow the election results, to install this guy. I mean, it's and some people are like, no big deal. I mean, people have lost sight of democracy here in this country. They've lost sight of what a president should be, the standards, and they've lowered the standards. Trump managed to lower the standards so low that people just didn't. They were like, so what? So what? He lied a little bit. So what? He tried to overthrow the election. So what? He led a riot at the Capitol. It's like, oh my God, I can't imagine any president getting away with a 1% of the shit that he has gotten away with.
Well, and as we've discussed many times on this show before, he's also put it in the heads of scores of unqualified idiots that they too can hold high office in this country. And, and so we had the spectacle of the Michigan statewide elections this year. We've had, if you go through the midterms, there's one person after another running on the I am not a politician platform, but unfortunately they're not anything else either. That I'm a businessman, not a politician pitch worked for a while, but then you have this guy over in New York, Santos, the openly gay incoming congressman, who turns out his entire resume is basically fiction.
Well,
and
he lives
unfortunately,
in Florida too. Don't forget, he lives in Florida.
He does. Santos lives in Florida.
He's registered. He is a registered Floridian.
And he's going to be representing Queens. So.
But I believe his divorce from his wife went through in New York, perhaps.
Okay.
Right before. Yeah. So there's a lot about his resume, but I think that the point that you're making about that there is still a contempt for the truth, or a disregard for the truth. It's interesting to hear his defenders saying, "Oh, well, who's the New York Times to go ahead and smear somebody?" And the fact that, so what if you didn't work for Citigroup or for Goldman Sachs or went to Fordham or went to law school
or had a pet rescue charity?
Exactly. So you got
or
that.
Was even gay in the first place. Go ahead.
The point about Mitch McConnell, who just came out and is essentially critiquing Trump for endorsing subpar candidates. I think that the GOP leadership is really upset that they didn't take the Senate in an off-year election, that they only have the House by 4, and if this guy gets recalled, 3 seats, is problematic enough. But what about Adolph? I think you made a good point about who's distancing themselves from the GOP. But what about those who are not from Trump? But who in the GOP is not? I mean, Jim Jordan, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, if he's not in Cancun. I mean, there are still a group of stalwart GOPers. I mean, are they just simply trying to become the heir apparent and take the Trump base for a 2024 run?
You know what? I think they're trying to protect their base. You know what? And it plays well in Texas for Cruz. You got thousands of people at the border wanting to come in to the U.S. and the more people come, the more that makes Cruz and them look good, and that gives them ammunition to beat up on the administration. I think at this point they're gonna milk Trump to the last drop. There's no question. Until Trump is removed, it's like Nixon. There was people that stood with Nixon all the way to the end until the godfather of the Republican Party, Goldwater, say he got to go. So when you get somebody like that and say, you know what, this Donald Trump, we need to bury his ass, and he has to go. Somebody from the Republican Party has to step up and say he has to go to jail. He need to be locked up right now. But we know that they want the Democrats to do the heavy lifting, They want them to so they can say, "Oh, we didn't not support the ex-president. It was the Democrats that did it."
I'm waiting for Trump to announce that he's the interim CEO for FTX. Now that Bankman-Fried's been indicted, so there is.
We haven't had. The last time we had overthrow the government, what, 200 years ago, Bird?
Mhm.
Yeah, listen, he's the first in 200 years that wanted to take control by force. This is unbelievable.
There was that thing at Fort Sumter, I think, in 1861. But yeah, okay. There is a Michigan angle to this, and I think I don't know, Mike, if you got to that part of the appendix yet or not, but the testimony of Michigan legislators. I mean, you had, of course, outgoing majority Senate leader Mike Shirkey. You've got former House Speaker Lee Chatfield. Both of whom flew out to meet with Trump at the big GOP powwow, I think on January the 2nd of last year, a few days before the insurrection. It's interesting to see how many of them took the fifth, but it seems as though they're claiming that they pushed back on Trump's many efforts to try to get them to subvert the election in Michigan. Anybody been reading about that?
I haven't seen that yet, but I don't care.
He's got, but he had plenty of ass-kissing toadies who were willing to do it for him. I mean, Sean Maddock, this Kathy Burden person, pretty much the entire fake slate of electors. They were certainly down for this. So
Chatfield's got problems right now. He's got other issues to worry about.
Yeah, exactly.
Shirky's a clown.
I mean, it's interesting.
Really beclowned himself. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's interesting. Some of these people who do the right thing, they're given so much credit for being like stand-up people, but it's. I know.
We can forget that they're pieces of shit. Yeah.
Right. The bar is so low for being a hero, and in some circles,
Well, that's the whole Mike Pence phenomenon, isn't it? That he was present on January the 6th to apparently repel the Trump horde single-handedly.
Right.
If he was really smart, he would get into that whole NFT thing that Trump did, and have the Captain America shield that was large enough to protect both him and Mother. But if he ever wanted to get my advice on these things. But the point that you made about Michon Maddock, Nancy, I mean, so the Michigan GOP now is trying to cast blame on whomever it can for its failures. And she actually has said that the reason why there was the midterm massacre was because the donor drought happened.
Right.
The idea that nobody wanted to give money to the GOP in the state, including on the national level, despite the fact that we had Ronna Romney McDaniel as the national chair, who apparently now is being challenged, according to Talking Points USA convention in a straw poll, that Harmeet Dillon, who was one of Trump's 2020 legal advisors, is vying for that role of being the head of the GOP national.
Imagine that. Nolan Finley had one of those occasional columns, the broken clock twice a day, that he on Thursday, where he kind of hit it out of the park, and he said what is obvious. I mean, sometimes it's just somebody has to say the obvious, and that is, they're right. The donor base can't stand Donald Trump, and they sat out this election because the Trump wing of the party put up an atrocious slate of candidates for particularly for the top executive positions, and that's the way it happened. But it's not the fault of the donors; it's the fault of the Maddocks. I mean, I told somebody on Twitter, I said, listening to her talk about this, it's like watching a dog learn sit stay. It's like they almost got it. They just can't make that last step. And
I thought you were going to say housebreaking, but I mean, isn't the real culprit in this, Nancy, the fact that the Biden administration has allowed the inflation rate to go so high that people's disposable income to donate to the GOP dried up?
Yeah,
isn't that what you're saying?
Yeah, tell that to Betsy DeVos. Right?
Well,
But
that's interesting.
I mean, the DeVosses have spent millions and millions of dollars promoting and supporting Republican candidates, and the Maddocks came in and basically said, you know, we don't want your money anymore. You're a rhino. The hell with you. And you know, they decided not to give anything anyway. What a shock. So
Well, it reminds me of 1998 when Jeffrey Feiger won the Democratic nomination for governor, and he had beat up on the UAW, beat up on every Democrat in the state. And then when he became the nominee, he said, "Where's the money?" And they say, "In our pockets." They didn't give him. They didn't give him a quarter. So yeah. So when you attack the establishment of any party, that's what you get. Kerry Lake in Arizona said, "I don't want anybody that supported the late John McCain. I don't need their votes," and she didn't get it.
right.
Right.
You know, I mean, we saw that here in 2018 when on the Democratic side for governor, when Abdul El-Sayed ran as a complete populist and an outsider, didn't really seem to cultivate much relationship with the establishment Democratic Party, and got pretty much primaried out. Who would have thought that his spirit animal wasn't Bernie Sanders, but was actually Jeffrey Feiger? Yeah. Go.
I mean, it's interesting, Michelle Maddock. I mean, she destroyed the party. I mean, her and her husband were heavy-duty Trumpers, pushing for all the bullshit.
They were bullies too.
Pushing all the bullshit, and then they're whining and going, "Oh my gosh, nobody wanted to support the candidates." These were the worst candidates. They weren't even, you know, sometimes there's bad or marginal. There were other gubernatorial candidates who were like marginal, but you know, and Tudor Dixon was not the worst of the group, but you had, you know, for Attorney General, for Secretary of State, Attorney General. Look, Vanessa was vulnerable. She could have been beaten, but she had such a horrible opponent that she, you know, won with not that much effort, but she was beatable. If Tom Leonard maybe had gotten the nomination instead of you know, Matt DePerno, who's just a nut.
She was very fortunate.
Yeah, she was fortunate.
They were all fortunate on a Democratic ticket. Listen, the Republicans went and got the cast of One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest to run against the governor and everybody else. So
right. It was kind of like, okay, it'd be like walking into the cuckoo's nest in the hospital saying, "Who wants to run for office in Michigan?" "Okay, Martini, you're going to run for Attorney General." "Okay, you know, Chief, you're going to be, you know, it's."
She did. No, but you're right. I mean, she and her husband. I mean, let's not forget that they come as a package deal. I mean, they were, as Finley pointing out the obvious again, the most incompetent party leaders that he has seen, and the slate that they backed was the most incompetent and terrible slate that he had ever seen. I also like that other woman who was mentioning Craig Maugher's story. I can't remember her name right now. This is Craig got the recording of the meeting where Michonne said all this, wrote the story, and then Nolan wrote the column off of that. But
you're not talking about Karamo, are you?
No. It was a white blonde woman who ran unsuccessfully for a House seat, and she said that the country, not the party, but the country was being ruined by single white women. So was
this Melissa Carone who was
no,
Giuliani?
No, Melissa Carone. I kind of check in with her every so often on Facebook. She's a piece of work.
You know, it's interesting, an analogy. I almost have Trump with Michelle Maddock, her and her husband putting everything into Trump. It's almost like Trump was, cryptocurrency.
Right.
And just said, okay, let's put everything in here. I think we're going to be winners. And then, you know, it imploded.
Put it all on number 22. So
yeah, it's playing roulette and putting everything on orange.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so speaking of Trump again, the House Ways and Means Committee has now released the Trump tax returns of the last 6 years. It shows that his acumen as president is second only to his acumen as a businessman, given the number of losses that he reported. In 1 year, he said that I think he only paid $1 in tax, and in other years he paid none. And I was listening to a radio station. How can I put this? The Great Voice of the Great Lakes, I guess it's called. And had people calling in and said, "Oh, this man is being railroaded. He's subject to a witch hunt. He's a man who didn't even take a salary when he was in the White House."
Please.
That is like that is such catnip to those morons. He didn't take a salary. It's like because he was stealing with both hands.
Because all the Saudis were staying at his
Jesus
hotel.
Christ.
He was charging the Secret Service for every weekend trip he took to every one of his properties. He was making a shitload of money.
Well, his whole family was.
He didn't need that measly $400,000 salary. He was making a lot more off the government.
Right.
Well, I don't know if you can actually get the government you can actually decline the check. I think he got the check. It would be interesting to see if he endorsed it and put it into, Montana Holding Company or some other kind of venture that he has. But what do the tax returns look like to you? I mean, is this a mark of somebody who evaded them? Is this a mark of somebody who's just a terrible business person?
It's the mark of a person with who's got the balls to just put anything on there. And I mean, what was the story? There's been so much news this week, which in a week when there normally isn't much. But Adolph, you referred to it. There was a story about how the IRS generally audits presidents, and they audited Barack Obama every year he was in office.
Right.
And they
That's
audited
the law.
Biden.
That's the law.
That is the law. They have
That is the law.
Okay. So then go ahead.
But me and you, the IRS audited us in 2 seconds.
Right. But
this guy by law
Trump.
should have been audited.
Yeah, they didn't audit Trump. So there you go.
But that's a violation of his right to privacy, isn't it? According to his base.
According to his idiot base.
Well, Maggie Haberman from the New York Times was reporting today about the fact that it's the IRS that didn't conduct the audit, which it needed to by law. And it seems as though there's some issues about the IRS general counsel that needed to be, I believe, confirmed by the Senate, and conversations between Trump and McConnell about how to have that go through. So there could be yet another story of intrigue here.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, it's going to be a font of this stuff forever. I just want to add before we move on, the person who said white women were killing or destroying the country, Catherine Neuracher, an unsuccessful Republican candidate for the state house. So there you go.
All right. So it wasn't Bridget Fonda or Jennifer Jason Leigh from Single White Female.
No, sorry.
Well, there was somebody on Fox News, one of the commentators on Fox, had said the same thing, that all single white women need to get married and start having kids.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems with our country.
Exactly.
Too many single women.
Too many.
I think Beyonce said the same thing, Mike. All the single ladies. So
why do people? Oh, by the way, Catherine Neuracher ran out of Plymouth. Why do so many men not understand that young men today are basically one big scratch and dent sale? And I'm not surprised that women don't want to marry them. I mean, it's like let's play video games all day long. Let's dress like toddlers. I think about how, I feel bad for my daughter, but she's got a nice boyfriend, but still, I just feel like, why is the blame always put on women who won't marry these losers and not on the losers
Scratch
themselves?
and dent. I like that term.
But I can't understand.
Alan, which one do you want to be? Scratch and I'll be dent, or the other way around?
Either one. Hey,
Yes, Adolph.
That's a good
But I
name
can't
of a band,
understand.
though.
You see some of these women with these guys, and I said, why are they with these guys? Some of them got nothing going for them. I see why some of these women are not getting married.
I see.
Because
This is a tangent, Adolph, and I won't go off on it forever. But a few years ago, my husband and I were out for dinner on our anniversary, and we went to this restaurant, and this couple, these two couples came in, young people. The women looked unbelievably good. I mean, they had done their hair. They were wearing like, really pretty dresses that showed off their figures. They had the gigantic heels on. They were in shape. They were beautiful. And the guys with them are wearing sports jerseys, baseball caps, and, some kind of like loose, shitty looking jeans. And they sit down and they sit with the women on one side of the foretop and the men on the other side. And within 5 minutes, the men were on their phones, looking at their phones and talking to one another. And the women were talking to one another. And it's like, I hope neither one of those girls settled for that. But anyway.
well, I seen a couple. They had a kid. The father pants was down up below his butt. The little boy pants was down below the butt, and the woman pants was down below the butt. I
Wow.
said, that's a hell of a family.
That's
Like,
We're the butt family, right?
the scratch.
yeah, man.
Those are the scratch indenters.
Yeah.
Well, one person who seems to field attractive women is Elon Musk. And Musk seems to be having quite a bit of trouble handling his own business affairs. Tesla's stock is down 60%.
Good.
And he decided to bring out a democratic process by putting to a poll whether he should remain as CEO. And shock of shocks, 57% of those who voted said he should be removed, or he should remove himself from being CEO of Twitter. To which he said, well, I will abide once we find another CEO. I don't know if anybody is really interested in getting that job, knowing full well that he's still the owner of the company, and that'll be like Billy Martin with George Steinbrenner back in the 70s and 80s with the New York Yankees. Twitter stock is delisted ever since he bought the company, and Tesla is tanking.
Well, it doesn't. It's privately held, right? There's no stock
exactly.
anymore, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
But what it does still need and is dependent on is advertisers, which are also starting to flee. Is this just the bonfire of the ultimate vanity, as Tom Wolfe would say?
I think he's doing such a disservice. I mean, the branding of Tesla, people who own Teslas love their Teslas, but, other people who have not yet bought a Tesla, and they're not cheap, they're going, his name is becoming synonymous with asshole, and nobody wants to drive an asshole mobile, or at least buy a new one. So,
there are plenty of people who will buy Teslas because he has this slavish cult of fanboys, almost all fanboys. There's a few women in there, but mostly fanboys. But I think that Tesla has been 1 pound of shit in a 25-pound bag for so long now. My husband is a retired autos editor of the Detroit News. He said Tesla gets away with shit that no American car company would get away with, starting with calling its driver assist technology autopilot. That just leads drivers to think that all they have to do is turn this thing on and they can take a nap behind the wheel. And then, the sensors, of course, have run people over. I mean, it's a crazy company, and I wouldn't buy a car from there. But
the Rolling Stone did a deep dive on how poor the working conditions are there, and particularly for women and minorities there.
Right.
It's
really the factory is a cesspool of, sexism and racial abuse. And it's just, it all comes from the top. That's, that's been true.
The guy comes from South Africa, okay? He'd like to turn the United States into an apartheid type country.
Well, you look at him with his shirt off, that famous picture of him standing on the swim platform of one of his buddies' yachts, and you think And this is the master race. Give me a break.
Right.
Yeah, what's really
and keep going, eh?
Yeah.
Just one of the spaceships, just keep going.
Yeah.
what's really sad is that the Tesla plant in the Bay Area is out by Fremont, Milpitas, and it used to be the old Toyota plant. And you can see it right off the highway, right off the 880. And you think about the quality control, and you think about the corporate structure of Toyota, and then you have Tesla in there, which is really kind of the antithesis of it. But that's what you've got. You've got people like Elon Musk, and let's talk about Sam Bankman-Fried, who has now been extradited from Jamaica. He agreed to it, and he is up on charges of fraud, allegedly bilking investors of $8 billion. He also made bail, a $250 million bond, to be under house arrest in his parents' $4 million Palo Alto home. Both of his parents are law professors at Stanford Law. I mean, is this Bernie Jr.? I admit I know nothing about cryptocurrency and all, but it really does seem as though it's based on a vapor.
It's magic beans. Go ahead.
Well, it's like it's the tulip from Holland back in the 1500s. You got to have your head examined to put your money in cryptocurrency.
But Mike, if you spent a fortune on tulip bulbs in Holland back then, in the spring you'd have some flowers. I mean,
right.
You don't.
That's all it was a flower.
It wasn't. It's not even a flower.
The market crashed.
Yeah,
Everybody went broke.
Exactly. It's magic beans. Here's the thing that I don't know what's going to happen with this guy. I mean, I assume he's probably going to end up like Elizabeth Holmes. You know, there's going to be a long trial. We're all going to be tired of hearing about it, and he'll get his prison sentence. But to me, the story is, and this was a really good David Van Drale column in the Washington Post this week, where he said, you know, the American media has to stop lionizing anybody with a spiel. You know, it's like the days of Cornelius Vanderbilt and Cornelius. Yeah, right. And the John D. Rockefeller and the titans who built American industry in the 18th and 19th century and 20th century are gone. These people, you know, Elizabeth Holmes, her whole thing was based on a lie. You know, Sam Bankman-Fried, also a liar. And even people like Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Jack, what's-his-face, Dorsey from Twitter. I mean, they had the fortune to be born in a time when, you know, there was all this money flying around Silicon Valley, and you can do almost, you know, you can get hundreds of millions of dollars in financing for practically just an idea. And I think we're starting to learn that these companies are absolute bullshit, and just trust your common sense. I mean, I've been trying to understand crypto since the first time I heard it, and I still don't get it. You know, it's, as far as I can tell, it's the ultimate greater fool, investment. It's like
but look at
France and China.
Yeah,
they don't allow it. And I actually had a case in federal court where my kid was accused of stealing cryptocurrency.
Right.
By the use of the computer. And I tried to explain to the federal judge, you know, the government came in and said, well, he stole $8 million. I said, $8 million of what?
Right.
Okay. I says, President Biden could sign an executive order tomorrow and declare that cryptocurrency is worth nothing. So now what, now what are his guidelines based on this alleged $8 million in losses?
Right.
It's all pie in the sky. It means nothing. And now it's coming true, because really, I mean, you're going to see, I think, that basically he was stealing nothing.
Was that a successful argument, Mike?
No, of course not.
but I saw that guy leave court where the judge said, well, you got to go stay with your parents. And it made me think of when Bobby Ferguson and Kwame Kilpatrick got found guilty and sentenced, they put chains on them and drug them out the courtroom. This guy go home. Don't go to your mom and dad.
I was standing right next to him. Believe me, trust me, I agree.
Yep.
This
I
guy beat
was
people out of $1 billion, and he get to go home and drink milk and cookies with his parents on Christmas Day.
although he's
Something's
not
wrong with
convicted.
that.
There's a little difference. He
White
hasn't been
privilege.
convicted yet, but he
It-
hasn't been convicted. Kwame was free until his conviction, but
Well,
I
I
was
mean,
shocked. I was shocked sitting there when they handcuffed Kwame right there. I've never seen it with white collar crime.
you were
where-
shocked. You
Yeah.
were shocked.
Yeah.
And we almost fell out of our chairs.
Yeah, I'd never seen it in all the years covered federal court of a white collar crime. It's usually, Chief Hart got convicted. He got 10 years in prison. He was 68 years old at the time of conviction. They let him fly out to San Francisco on his own to report to prison.
Hmm.
And that's, you're 68 years old. There's some incentive to leave the country if you're going to be serving 10 years. But they let him. And so, here's the mayor of the city of Detroit, and they're locking him up right there on the spot. It was pretty shocking.
Did he get an ARP discount on his ticket out there, Alan?
I hope so.
I wish I had sat next to him on the plane and just, struck up that conversation. So where you headed?
Yeah.
Federal
Well,
prison.
Alcatraz.
Joe Swickard and I were waiting for him at the airport, and he walks out and he looks at us and goes, "Can't you guys leave me alone already?"
You should have had tulips, Alan. You should have handed that to him.
Yeah. I felt bad for him. But,
Well, Nancy, I think you need to place some context to this. I mean, Jack Dorsey and Zuckerberg and Bankman-Fried, they probably all read Trump's Art of the Deal. Rockefeller and Carnegie and all those guys couldn't. It hadn't been written yet. So we had a world leader come to Washington. Vladimir Zelensky was ferried out of Poland in a surreptitious way with high security. Landed at Joint Base Andrews, jumped in an Uber. No, that's probably not true. Made his way to the White House and then addressed Congress. I don't know if any of you heard his speech. It seemed as though it was very well received. And yet at the same time, there are pledges by the Republicans that when they take over at least the House, that Mr. Zelensky's purse strings might be cut when it comes to his efforts to thwart Vladimir Putin. Is this because all of a sudden the Republicans have become abstemious, or is it because they are actually pro-Putin?
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Pro-Putin.
Pro-Putin?
I mean, I don't know. They won't say they're actually pro-Putin, but I mean,
they're pro-Trump.
They're pro-Trump, and Trump is pro-Putin, certainly. I don't know. This to me seems like a cut and dried example of a conflict that we should be involved in some form. Not necessarily sending troops, but certainly sending money and weapons. If the United States stands for anything, it certainly stands for a country to be sovereign in, according to the will of its own people. And I mean, did you read? There was a fantastic story, which I'm still working my way through. It's a special section in last Sunday's New York Times called Putin's War. And it was about why Russia is flailing and doing so badly in this war. And it's classic, New York Times. The best things they do are these kinds of projects. And, it's amazing. I mean, and it shows the danger of having a leader who is surrounded by ass kissers, because that's basically the bottom line here. He had all of these, oligarchs and generals telling him that everything was going to be great and it was going to be a walkover and this is the greatest army on the planet. And the details are devastating. Getting a load of sniper rifles where they have to look up on Wikipedia how to use them. I mean, and everybody's got a cell phone because so many of these guys were drafted, literally almost dragged off the streets. And so they're talking to their families back home, which allows the Ukrainian artillery to target them precisely and drop bombs on them. I mean, it's amazing. We should absolutely be helping in that one, and it's but Republicans are, they're lost in the sauce.
This
So,
doesn't-
I have.
They're not going to. They're going to finance this war. I mean, the only people that didn't stand up when Zelensky was speaking was that asshole Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
That
Beavis.
Boberts.
I want to use a very vile term, but I won't.
I've already.
Okay.
Actually, he Nancy, I think he looks like Butthead, not Beavis. Just for clarification.
You're right. He is Butthead.
According to official reports, and these I would suspect are quite conservative, coming from the Russian side, the Russians have already lost 101,000 troops, 3,000 tanks, 6,000 armored personnel, 283 planes, 267 helicopters, and we're only 300 days into it. At these levels, it's quite likely that within 1 year, Russia's casualty count is going to be twice that of the American military casualties during the Vietnam conflict, which lasted 21 years.
Right.
So
it's mind-boggling.
I mean, their military's been exposed as being a toothless tiger. And if you know anything about the way that their military works, once you kill an officer, the rest of the troops have no idea what to do. So, I mean, you're seeing that. And you got officers running off the field of battle, and the rest of the troops have no idea what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in the Marine Corps, we learned about that basically you kill an officer, then it's over. And the Marines, when they fought in Japan against the Japanese in World War II, that was the goal: kill as many officers as you could, because the rest of the troops, would basically, of course, they fought to the death, but they were unorganized, and you're seeing that with the Russian troops. And of course, it scripted a bunch of people off the streets and giving them about a week's worth of training and throwing them into the front lines. What the hell you think's going to happen?
Mike, did you ever see combat when you were in the Corps? No. Okay.
I was going to say the Russia, it's amazing. You lose 100,000 people for what? Like the Russian people, I was talking when I was in Israel. I was at a tour in Bethlehem, and there was this couple. The husband was Ukrainian, the wife was Russian. They were living in San Francisco. But I was asking, I said, do you call back home? She says, yes, I call back home. I talk to people back home, and they say, we can't talk about, they're afraid they're being, their conversations are being monitored. They say, let's just talk about the weather. But she says these people are hiding their kids from serving, and people are fleeing there. And it's like, I can't imagine 100,000 people dead, and how I can't imagine how long Putin can keep that up. But who knows?
Yeah. Did you say, Saeed? You said casualties. Does that include dead and wounded?
No, that's dead. That is dead.
So what was the
number.
death? What was the death toll in Vietnam? It was 59,000.
58 and change. Yeah, 59.
Okay, so they're closing in on doubling that number.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So
and we're not even we haven't even completed a year. It's only been 10 months.
Right.
So
exactly.
yeah, I mean the numbers really are kind of staggering. There's also reports that Allan, as you were saying, of Russian males fleeing to Kazakhstan and trying to cross the border there. Mm-hmm. And get asylum. I
listened to a podcast this week where they said that the gyms are full of women. Gyms in Moscow, no male trainers there. People are afraid to answer their doors because apparently, if you don't get the notice, you don't have to deploy, and so they're going door to door. The recruiters, and.
So what you're saying, Nancy, is that the scratch and dent phenomenon is not limited to American guys.
Yeah,
they'll take all the scratch and denters they can get in Russia. They don't care.
It reminds me of the Melfar Ford commercial: push, pull, drag it in.
Yeah. Well, places like Georgia, Now they don't have to worry about Putin trying to come in and snatch them, because nobody is scared of the Russian army anymore. The
Nope.
only thing they scared is that this crazy asshole might nuke them. That's all he got left. That's the only leverage he has.
That's why he's so dangerous.
So basically, what you're saying is, ironically, there's no need for NATO to expand any further.
There's no question about it. Listen, anytime you got to go into the prisons and get recruits, and you know, Mike, that when you in boot camp, you always have some shitheads that's in boot camp in 8 weeks, 12 weeks. They still don't get it. Now you getting people out of prison and giving them a week of training. Oh man, it's like
shoot fish in a barrel, man. Them Ukrainian
you might as well make Jethro a general in the Soviet army.
Bill Murray.
Those Ukrainian boys are some serious boys.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're fighting for their freedom. They're fighting for
Fighting for their country. Their land.
That's the difference right there. You know.
A couple of nuggets from the oracles of the right. Trump Jr. tweeted that Zelensky is an international welfare queen, and
send him to the front. He can make him a general in the Russian army.
And apparently Tucker Carlson did find a particular focal point for critique, and that was Zelensky's apparel. He said he looked like a manager of a strip club demanding money, and that Congress was clapping like seals when he addressed it, similar to a Stalin speech. So,
Tucker Carlson is such a
Trump speech.
I mean, I don't care.
He is such a steaming pile of shit.
He's like to be in a room with him again.
You know what? He has retreated. He does his entire show from his country house in Maine, I believe.
He's a little white bitch.
He is. He's a spoiled little white bitch, and guess who's kissing his ass? None other than Charlie LaDuff.
One of my favorite stories about him is about how he tried to hit up Hunter Biden for his son for an internship
to get him into Georgetown.
Exactly. To get him in Georgetown. That's it. So, Alan, please go ahead.
There's a attorney friend here who is wanted to get this in. He said there's a tiny number of people who fail to report for their sentence regardless of age. People don't have the funds or mental acuity to flee. Don't feed ignorance to the public. Kilpatrick would have reported they'll lock him up now as petty, vindictive power exercised by prosecutors.
There we go.
Get that.
All right.
Okay.
Very good.
So,
not exactly the best transition to the next segment, but we'll take it. Alan, take it away.
All righty.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Smart of the Week.
That's my man. That's Rob. That's my man. That's who parks my. That's my valet guy, man. That's my man.
All right,
Michael.
Love Rob.
Why don't you start us off with a schmuck then?
Oh, okay. Well, I got a lot of them, but I come down to this one after talking to my commanding officer. I don't know the person's name, but my schmuck of the week would be the sycophant that rides around in Trump's golf cart while he's playing golf and reading him right-wing propaganda about how great he is while he's playing golf. I don't know the person's name.
It's a woman.
It's a woman.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we know that much. Okay. But that's my schmuck of the week. Riding around in a golf cart with a laptop, feeding Trump bullshit.
And a printer. She's also got a printer in that too, because he likes to read things on the page. So there you go.
Before he tears it in half and throws it down the toilet. Oh my gosh.
That's a good one.
That's depressing. Okay, Adolph.
To those assholes we call Republicans who say there's no climate change, just look at what the country is going through. I mean, all over the place. Where in areas where it's supposed to be nice and sunny, it's cold as hell. So, to you deniers that, you don't have to worry about the climate. We just see it right now.
Adolph, you said that you were in London a couple weeks ago. Did it snow while you were there?
No, all it did was rain.
Okay. Yeah, I was there last week and it snowed, which isn't that common, but it was so bone-chillingly cold because it just gets down into your bones.
Huh.
So yes,
Interesting.
it was. Yeah, there's a lot more relative humidity, because it's surrounded by water. So
Yes,
all
that
right,
other Eden, right? So.
that emerald isle, that earth, this England. Yes. Okay, Nancy.
Well, I had Tucker Carlson on my list, but since you already mentioned his incredibly galling statement about Zelensky's outfit, I'm going to go with another person who puts great store by her turnout. If anybody reads the Daily Beast, the best story of yesterday's political cycle came out of the Daily Beast, who got their mitts on the 37-page memo for her staff. Of Kristen Sinema's staff, a senator from Arizona, on basically how to take care of her because she needs a lot of plumping. And this violates, at least it goes very close to the Senate ethical boundary here, because your staff, a senator's staff, any lawmaker's staff, is there to help them do their job, not to take care of them and make sure that they always have a room temperature bottle of water at hand at all times, and that they have something with a lot of protein to eat 3 times a day. You read through this and you realize what Kristen Sinema really cares about is training for Kirsten. I'm sorry, I keep calling her Kristen. Kirsten Sinema. What she really cares about is training for triathlons, and her day revolves around her exercise. And her staff has to, when she travels, her staff has to call ahead and make sure that the pool in whatever hotel she's staying in is of the proper dimensions so that she can get her swim training in.
Wow.
And it's just, it is hilarious and galling at the same time, which is
She must not be working out very hard because she looks like shit. So I don't know.
I think she looks pretty good.
But Nancy, she's not the only one, because when I worked in Congress, you had a lot of these prima donnas, men and women, that had these crazy quirks that they staff had to do. Right. They had staff. That's all they did was personal errands.
Right.
For these folks.
I understand that. That's very true. But this one is just, it's a little over the top. So
I think they all.
Well, go ahead. What?
I was going to say they all base their demands on what Barry Manilow demands at the concerts before that there be stuffed animals and M&Ms and.
It's kind of like a concert.
Van Halen had the M&Ms thing.
Yeah,
no brown M&Ms. Wasn't no brown M&Ms?
That's right, Mike. That's what it was.
J-Lo's is pretty intense too. Anyway, so Kirsten Sinema.
I think Mariah Carey, like everything, all the furniture has to be white. And
that's a J-Lo thing too.
Is that the J-Lo thing?
Same way. Okay. These people are out of their fucking minds. You know that?
She also requires a particular brand of grapefruit scented candle that be burning in any of her personal spaces so that she can, have some aroma.
Diana Ross, you can't look at her while she rehearses. The workers, no, that's true.
I know.
The workers cannot look at her while she rehearses.
You know what? I years ago, after she smacked that guy for looking at her in the airport, I was actually in the airport and I was staring right at her. I was waiting for her to come over and smack me.
Now that we should sell tickets for. Okay.
Oh my gosh! Never a dull moment on this show. So I mean, did you use a periscope to see her? I mean, wow. See, this is why I respect musicians who all they want is a bottle of Jack, no straw, backstage. I mean, that works.
And a plate of cold cuts.
Who's your schmuck?
I'm sorry, me?
Yes, you.
Me. Okay, wow. I'm going to go with Jim Jordan, who, the January 6th report described him as a significant player in trying to undermine the 2020 election. And now, sadly, he's, I think, going to take over as the head of the judiciary in January. And that is going to be one shit show. That guy is so disgraceful. He's a Tucker Carlson, you know, whatever. But he's so disgraceful.
Yeah.
He needs his ass kicked, is what he needs.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Okay. Well, there were so many candidates, as Nancy said as well, this week. I mean, it could have been Donald Trump Jr., it could have been Tucker Carlson, could have been Josh Hawley, who said at Talking Points USA, you can own the libs by quitting porn and starting a family. George.
And that's
George
probably
Santos,
all he does is watch porn.
Right. That's so funny.
George
line.
Santos, Kerry Lake, but my schmuck or collective of the week, given that it's holiday week, are porch pirates.
Oh,
Those awful people who are going around and stealing people's packages off their front porch. The ultimate Grinch thing, including one fella who was dressed up as a FedEx delivery guy, who then went and was stealing people's packages. There is just no reason to do this. So any of you who are porch pirates, you are my schmucks of the week.
Shonda.
It is an absolute Shonda. They're mimsers all. So on that note, I want to wish everybody a happy Hanukkah, a very Merry Christmas, and a happy Kwanzaa. Also, happy winter solstice, which we just passed a couple days ago, so belated for that. Thank you, Adolph Mongo. Thank you, Mike Rataj. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. Thank you, Allan Lengel. And with the last word,
Drive home safely.
which certainly